Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Houndsman XP podcast, and I'm going to unpack what we're going to talk about in this episode. First off, our guest is Gary Roberson, and you are all familiar with Gary. He's been on the podcast a few times now, maybe our most frequent guest, repeat guest, and he's well worth it because Gary has been in this business for a long time in the outdoor industry. So, but also he's extremely knowledgeable, and hey, he's just an all-around good guy. What can we say? I have spent considerable amounts of time with Gary. You really get to know a guy when you spend hours with him in a truck looking for lion tracks. So I've spent time with him in the mountains, in the desert, in the woods, in the brush country of Texas, and also in, of all places, Las Vegas. And Gary is just our kind of guy. He is a stand-up guy, and happy to have him back. But you're going to hear stories about mudding on the mud roads of the Navajo Nation and also the Hopi Indian Reservation while we were out there. And we're going to talk about some historical Bluetick breeding. And so I think you're really going to enjoy that. Gary has spent a lot of his time working with organizations like Safari Club International, the Dallas Safari Club, and different things to preserve our way of life, our lifestyle as houndsmen, as hunters. And we really enjoy spending time with Gary. Also, we want to point to and showcase our good friends at Freedom Hunters. Your Patreon sponsorship helps us fulfill our mission to continue our work with Freedom Hunters. Not only does it help us put out a high-quality podcast, but it also helps us promote Freedom Hunters, be involved there, coordinate Freedom Hunters events. We're going to be rolling out plenty of events this fall, and your support through Patreon helps us do that. Freedom Hunters is taking veterans from field to field. That is their slogan. They're taking from the battlefield out into the field of hunting and the outdoors world back here. And that's why we want to be involved with them. And so you can support Freedom Hunters directly through our website at houndsmanxp.com. Or if you decide you would like to support us for as little as $1 per show, you can do that at houndsmanxp.com and follow the links for our Patreon. On our front page, right below our logo, there is a button that says Support Houndsman XP. That's going to take you right to our Patreon page. And once you get to that page, you're going to see that there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. And we just finished up our first monthly drawing and sent the prize packages out for that drawing. And we'll be doing that every month. So check out us on our website, houndsmanxp.com, and follow us to Patreon. Hey, let's talk to Gary Roberson. We're going to cover a lot of ground with him. It's a fun conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Houndsman XP podcast, everybody. It is early May as we record this, and early May in Indiana is 50 degrees and rain, and our guest today is our longtime friend. I can't say old. I'm afraid I'll offend you, Gary.
Well, it might be true.
Longtime friend Gary Roberson, and he's talking to us from Menard, Texas. It's 50 and rainy here. What's it like in Menard, Texas?
It's really nice today. It's about 70 degrees. We had a front blow in this morning, and the wind's blowing 30, 35 miles an hour out of the north. But and it's supposed to be down in the 40s in the morning. But earlier in the week, we were over 100 here. And for May, even for us, that's a little bit warm. And the worst thing is it's dry. Early on, we had, the year started out great. We were green. Yeah. But in typical Texas fashion, we're dry again. And so we're praying for rain. They're giving us a better chance into next week. So we'll see.
Yeah. How long do you say, how long's it been since it rained there?
Right here, probably close to 2 months. And that's not unusual, though. Well, we can, in the summers, a lot of times fairly common to go, 3 months without a rain.
Yeah.
That's not when we get rains here. We typically get rains in the springs and the falls, and if it doesn't rain in the spring you wait till the fall, and then if it doesn't rain in the fall, you wait till the next spring. That's generally the way it goes.
Yeah. It was. I know that when we were down close to you, down there in your country, down at Cotulla last fall, people had buckets sitting out, and people were doing rain dances. And then when it did rain, everybody was partying in the streets. It was amazing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's just the way it is here. It's a shame. This whole country is really strong, and if you can just add moisture, it'll grow about anything. But getting that moisture is really tough. I'm curious about this. So Texas used to, how many acres does it take per cow to grow beef in Texas? What's the rule? In Menard County, where I am, we consider 28 acres to an animal unit. If you go west of here, we get our annual rainfall is about 21 inches. Mm-hmm. Of course, you go west of here, and their annual rainfall, it depends on where you are, it can drop down to say 10 or 11 inches, and then you're closer to, probably some of that country. Well, it's so sorry. Not only is it dry and rocky there, it's just not worth much. Maybe you can run a cow to about a half section, 320 acres.
Wow. One cow per 320 acres is what they figure.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But where we are, we always figure 28, and, it may, 28 to 30 on an animal unit.
Yeah, I think where I'm at, it's about 1 per 3 is what our ratios is.
That would be my guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Big difference. But hey, have you been running those hounds any? That's what we're talking about today is Houndsman XP podcast. Have you had a chance to get out and run any hounds? I've been seeing a few pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, I have been hunting some, and of course I just hunt mornings. I go out, generally dump the dogs about when it's breaking daylight, and then hunt for a couple hours, and by then it's warming up, and I need to get back. I need to get to work, so I'll head to town. But I've been hunting some, and luckily, believe it or not, I haven't found any snakes yet. Usually, that's a problem that we encounter this time of the year. Snakes are out. I know that, but I've just been lucky, and I've been going the mornings when it was a little cooler, purposefully trying to avoid that.
Right. Okay, so you deal with a lot of snakes every year, so let's talk something that's a little bit technical here, because you always hear or you see posts on Facebook and social media about what to do when you get a snake bite in a dog. So what do you do, Gary? If you get a dog bitten by a rattlesnake, what's your process on that?
Well, first off, I get my dogs vaccinated with the rattlesnake, vaccine every year. And the first time you give it to them, I think it's you give them one shot, and then 2 or 3 weeks later you hit them with a second, and then of course then they're good through the snake season. Mm-hmm. And then the next year rolls around, you just have to give them the one shot. And I just picked up the vaccine for my dogs just a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And it cost me about $25 a head to vaccinate them, but that's pretty cheap insurance. And I'm not going to tell you it'll save a dog, because I think if a dog is hot, if he's been running and he gets hit by a big hot snake, especially behind the shoulder, and it chances of that dog living are not real good. And yeah. When I say a hot snake I mean one that hasn't fed it probably maybe in a day or two, mm-hmm. and sometime maybe longer. So that poison is really strong. If the snake is just fed or just struck something, they're not nearly as, that venom's not nearly as strong. And, occasionally I'll get a dog that even with a dry bite. And then I've had dogs free and there'd be a rattlesnake under the tree, and it bites as many as 3 dogs, one snake. Well, the first dog that gets hit, you will know pretty quick which one it was. He's going to be the sickest. And then by the third dog, it's virtually a dry bite.
Right. But you still have to treat it. You still have to treat a dry bite, though, right?
And not much. And of course, your favorite place to get a dog bit is on the head, where there's, the less amount of muscle tissue is where you want him bit. People, you think, okay, I got a dog. He got hit in the hind leg. That's a long way from his heart. He's probably going to make it. And no, that dog with that muscle mass and that hind leg, that may be one of the worst spots, because what generally kills the dog is when that poison starts to break down the muscle tissue.
Right.
And as it breaks down, it overloads the kidneys and it causes them to shut down. That's why when we get a dog bit, the first thing I do, of course, is get them to a vet, because when generally I can be at a vet within I'll just quit hunting, grab the dog up. I'm at the vet in 30 minutes. And of course, I know the vet well. I call them and tell them, hey, meet me at the clinic. I got one, I got one bit.
Right.
And we'll vaccine, they'll hit them with, several different things. But main thing they do is they start running fluids through them, because as that tissue breaks down, the more fluids they have in them, it'll help float it through the kidneys.
Okay, so I'm a guy that decides I'm coming to Texas from Indiana and I'm going to coon hunt with a buddy of mine. I haven't done anything on snake vaccines or anything like that. What would I need to throw in my kit? Let's just start right there. What one thing could I have in my kit? My
Benadryl.
Benadryl is the first thing you're going to hit them with. Yeah,
that's the first thing I hit them with. And it slows, I know one thing, I can't take Benadryl. It puts me to sleep, bam. Right. And that's kind of the way it affects the dog. It slows them down, slows down that heart rate. And anything that you can do to help reduce swelling, of course, would help. If you were going where you couldn't get to a vet, I'd say you take some of these ice packs or whatever, would probably help some as well. But Benadryl is the one thing that we carry.
Yeah.
And then, but in all honesty, I'd probably tell a guy, just come down and hunt with me. If your dogs don't know snakes, they're the first one that's going to get hit.
Right.
Because the curiosity, that snake's called up and rattling. The dog that doesn't know what that is, he hears that snake and wham, he runs to him and wants to put his nose down there.
Right.
Well, he's going to get it. Of course, he's going to get it in the face, and if he doesn't get him in the eyeball, that's the best place to get bit.
Yeah.
But, it's still not a good deal.
So I shoot him up with some Benadryl. Now, I'm headed towards a vet. What do I need to make sure that a vet's doing for my dog to make sure that the impact is lowest here? I mean, most vets are going to know, but just
they're going to know down here because they treat so many of them. So I don't really have an answer other than, like I say, I got I have my vet on speed dial, and even if back when I was hunting at night, I'd call him and he'd meet me at the clinic.
Yeah.
And sooner that dog can get treatment, the better.
Okay. Yeah.
You're increasing their chances to make it.
Well, that's kind of the neat thing about doing podcasts with people from all over the country. As mobile as we are these days, it's not unlikely that somebody could get the bright idea and have the means to travel. 40 years ago, Texas was a major road trip for people. And, I've been in Texas within 3 times in the last year. So, it's good information to have on hand to at least discuss it. But yeah, and get it from somebody how long have you been hunting hounds? How many years haven't you hunted hounds? Maybe we'll go that route.
Okay. I think I got my first hound when I was 10.
Yeah.
And I turned 67 this year. But I'll tell you, that person I got was sure not worth much.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, isn't it?
but it gave me an excuse to go, and I
Right.
would go with another older gentleman, and you always want to have a dog in the race,
Right.
and unfortunately, this one wasn't very in the race very often, but anyway, I had hounds for years growing up, and then there was a period of time from about 77, 78 in there to about 88 that I did not have any, because that's when the boys were born. And Clint, actually the oldest one, of course, when he got to be about 10, he was born in 78. And that's when he wanted his first one. And I don't know, I guess dogs are in your blood. And
Right.
I never had taken him coon hunting or anything, but he just wanted a coon hound.
Yeah.
And so, when we got back in it, it was really for him. And then now, of course, he doesn't do it as much. And here I am still raising these Bluetick dogs.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Good stuff.
Maybe that's why he quit me, because I got into these Blueticks.
It might be. Hey, at least you didn't try to start him with plots.
There we go. Actually, the very first dog that I got him was a Bluetick.
Is that right?
And I got it from. Do you remember Dartez Brumley that wrote? What was it? Bugle Mountain Blueticks or something. He wrote for Full Cry.
I probably
And,
I was probably just starting to read Full Cry around 1985 is when I was probably reading it in 1980, 83. But yeah, for me to recall that, I don't recall that name. I'm sure Steve would.
He was yeah, Steve would. I know he was. He ranched north of here, close to kind of Possum Kingdom, back up in there, a little town called Newcastle, and he had hunted a good bit out west, and just was the nicest guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the first blue dog that Clint got came from, and that was the foundation of all these I have today.
Yeah. So what kind of dogs are back behind that dog? What were some of the dogs in that pedigree?
He was 100% Vaughn bred, top and bottom. That was one thing Dartez, they not only did they have to be blue, they had to be Vaughn bred dogs. And, or he just, he wasn't a big fan, but he liked those bigger, heavier made, kind of long-eared dogs. And this, I will say one thing, this was a coon dog. She was a year old when we got her, and never had to break her off anything. She was as straight as any dog I guess straightest dog I ever saw on a coon, but she wouldn't run anything else.
Yeah.
I had to get him a little trashier to start running all these cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the way it goes. Then I started breeding them, basically the Smoky River dogs.
Right.
First generation or two.
Well, we've asked a few of our guests this question. So you say they were 100% Vaughn bred. So in those days, would you say 1978?
That was in about 88.
88.
Clint was born in 78. Yeah.
Okay. He was born in 78. You got the Vaughn bred dog in 88. So help me out on some history here. Albert Vaughn, was he still breeding dogs, or was he still alive in 88?
I guess I think he was still alive in those years, but not long after that. Somebody can correct me on that, but that's probably about the time, he was winding down, I would think. So 'cause I never met the man.
Okay.
Now, Dartez Brumley, of course, was the fellow we got the dog from, and he knew Mr. Vaughn and, would go buy dogs from him. And then there was a fellow by the name of, I think it was Marlon Skinner, and he was over in East Texas, and he had all Vaughn bred dogs. And I think the daddy of this female was from him. Mm-hmm.
Well, the point I was getting at is back then you could actually get a for real Vaughn bred dog, and when you scroll through, you'll see a litter of puppies for sale, or you'll see an older dog for sale, and you'll see Smoky River bred, Vaughn bred, Rambo bred, it all. But really, when you get down to it, that bloodline is pretty old, and it's hard.
It's pretty old.
It's not even.
Yes,
you've probably got your foundation is Vaughn, but you don't call them Vaughn bred dogs in.
No.
2020.
I don't call. My dogs. She was the one we started with. She was all Vaughn. Then we went heavy Smoky River. The next couple of crosses in my dogs. Then I found a dog. I wanted a little more confirmation on him, and I found a dog in Wisconsin that belonged to Dennis Upson.
Right.
And I saw that he had him in a photo of him in a magazine, and that was the best looking blue dog I ever saw, the most athletic looking blue dog I ever saw. Mm-hmm. And his name is Upson's Blue Boy too. So I got a hold of Dennis, and I described that dog to me, and of course he coon hunted a little bit. Really, he was a bear hunter, and I said that's the kind of dog I want to breed to. Well, we kind of struck up a friendship, and anyway, he sent me 3 different dogs, or I got 3 different dogs from him, and the first one was the best. Mm-hmm. And but I have gone back to that Upson's Blue Boy breeding several times. All of these dogs I have that breeding top and bottom, go back to him. And then all of my dogs top and bottom go back to Clear River Diamond Jim as well, right. Which was a dog that was supposed, they call Rambo breeding, but his mother was heavy. Well, she was Smoky River dog. And, but
yeah, Diamond Jim was directly out of Rambo too, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Anyway, that dog, I thought put pretty decent confirmation on my dogs, but the offspring of that dog really like cats. Mm-hmm. I think they prefer cats over coon, and a lot of people probably don't know that because that dog I think went to the World Finals a couple of times when he was 2 and 3 years old. He never won it. I mean, I think he was in the top 20. But anyway, he was, I guess, a pretty decent coon dog. But what I found is I've had offspring of him directly out of him twice. And those dogs, some of them didn't, they'd tree coons, they'd start coons, tree them, but they weren't really aggressive to them. They bite them a little, but not much if they caught one on the ground. So, mm-hmm. But you put a cat on the ground in front of them, and man, the deal's on. They hate cats.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of like that in my dogs, because I try to do both. If I had to, it's a shame I don't have any bobcats left in this country. They all died out. I used to catch quite a few here, and mm-hmm. and then, like I say, they said it was feline leukemia moved through this country, and they're real slow about coming back. Unlike coons and coyotes, they'll reproduce, but a cat, she'll raise 2, sometimes 3 kittens a year, and that's it.
Right.
So they're slower about coming back. And then nowadays we have so many guys that are out there calling, thank goodness, because that's what we do for a living.
That's right.
So, if they call up a cat, they're going to shoot it. They don't let them walk.
Right.
And I think that's probably affected our population.
But you can get into bobcats pretty quick. I mean, you can get down around Cotulla, down into your old stomping grounds down in that country, and be right back in it. And we're close to those, and then of course I love the lion deal. Yeah. Unfortunately, this year with the virus and all, and them shutting down some units, it was the worst year ever to go to the Navajo reservation. In fact, I called out there yesterday to see when I could go back in, and everything's pretty much shut down until May 31st. Yeah.
As far as I can't get a motel room.
Did you get a bear tag? Last time we talked, you were working on getting a bear tag.
We put in for bear tags, but now they put the drawing off till the 15th of May. Okay. So we don't know. I didn't personally draw, but I put in, we're trying to get 2 tags. So mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah. And then you still don't know if you're going to be able to get there to use them.
That's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really kind of awkward this year.
Yeah. Well, last time I've hunted with you, and I hunted the time that I've hunted with you a couple times now. One was bobcat hunting with Shorty, sure. And then last time was on the Navajo during the Hopi Mudfest, the Hopi Reservation Mudfest.
Yes, sir.
I
haven't gotten over that yet.
Who did you get your truck washed, or is it still packing around mud?
Oh gosh, yeah. You have to. If you let that mud dry on your truck,
it's like concrete.
It's like concrete. You either have to knock it off with a hammer and chisel, or you're going to sell it with that mud under.
When I pulled, the morning I pulled out, it was cold, and I tried to go to that car wash right there in Chinle and spray the mud off my truck, and I think I just froze everything in place. So I was praying for rain. I was, of course, because we met in Vegas at the SHOT Show. So I was headed to Vegas, and I was praying that we'd at least have some rain on the road to loosen it up. And I pulled into Vegas, and my truck was an absolute mess. People were looking at me like, where have you been? Because there isn't any mud like that in Vegas.
No.
And
no, it doesn't rain there.
No. So I got up one morning, and I bet you, I just happened to wake up. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd already scouted out one of those self-serve car washes, and headed over there and sprayed that truck down, and I left one hell of a mess in that car wash, and I was just hoping and praying nobody that ran that place came by, because they would have made me pay double for the car wash I got.
Somebody really would have been cussing at Yankee.
Oh, man. Gee whiz. It was terrible. It was terrible.
It's terrible. It is terrible. And
it wasn't nearly as terrible. It was kind of fun for me, but why don't you describe that trip we made across the Hopi? And I'll set it up a little bit. So I'm not sure why we ever ended up on the Hopi Reservation, other than we were just branching out, trying to find some new country to try to find a lion track in. And we went up that grade and left. We were leaving the Navajo. We were going to cut through. Thought we'd just cut through the Hopi and drop in to a new spot. And we thought we were going to hit a shortcut. And as we start going up the grade, there was so much ice on the grade that somebody had thrown hay on it so we could get traction to get up there. And then after that, the ice was the least of our concerns.
Oh, I was praying for ice once we got up on top. If those roads had been frozen, we would have been fine.
Oh, absolutely.
But once we got on top, of course, it was, I have no idea how many miles we drove. And of course, all of it was sideways. I don't know how many times we were off the road into the ditch. And we were just cutting across the Hopi Reservation because we were trying to drop back into the lower part of that unit in the Navajo, because it's not legal for us to hunt the Hopi.
Exactly.
But you can drive through there. But we'd been warned, if you're in that particular unit, which is 7, and it dries out, it not dries out, but if it melts, you're in trouble.
Yes.
And by golly, they were right.
I'll never be back in there.
I'll never get caught back in there again. No way. Not where we were.
We're traveling.
I see no reason to go back in there.
No, I don't either. Unless you know it's dry. Because when we were out in the middle of those sagebrush flats and that high country there, for one thing, the road was all
flat graded.
Yeah, flat graded, so there wasn't any runoff, and the sides that had a little bit of a berm on both sides, so it was like a bobsled run of mud, and it was just slick as it could be. And then we're looking around and we're thinking, man, if we slide off of this thing, if we do slide off somewhere, because there were some spots, you'd start down a little bit of a grade and the truck would just go its own way. And so now we're thinking, if we get stuck, how are we going to get out? Because there's nothing to winch to, nothing to come along, or nothing.
And there's not going to be anybody come througthe there.
No, because they're
all the locals know.
They're smarter than we were.
Stay out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess what we would have had to have been praying for was that the roads would freeze solid.
Yeah.
Overnight, and we could get up on it somehow and come out of there.
Man, what a mess.
It was going to be a long night.
Yes, it was. Because there were 4 of us in the truck.
Yeah.
There's me and
One
you,
thing about it,
Steve and Anthony. Your son Steve and Anthony
right.
Pace. Yep.
Yeah. Thank the good Lord we got out of there, and I was never so glad to see pavement as I was when we finally got out to a highway.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
And you know where I'm talking about. Where was it? Keams Canyon.
Keams Canyon. Yep. Yep. It was a great. I love that little town. I was glad to see it. Glad to see it.
Yeah, I'd never been there before, but it's one of my favorites in the reservation now.
Exactly. Well, one of the things we got to do a lot of was, spend a few days there, and I watched your hounds out there on the road, watched them working down the road in front of us. And, the thing I noticed about your hounds, Gary, was the fact that they were all pretty true to type. You had some color variation, but as far as build and athleticism and things like that, it was all pretty true to type. And I like the way your dogs didn't just run down the road. They got out and worked the brush around the road, but they never got out of pocket. And is that pretty common?
They get a lot of. That's the way I hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Even here, where I live, I guess the average ranch we hunt on is probably 3,000 acres on the small end, and up to about 10,000 acres or a little bigger on the top end. And so we don't cast them. I mean, these dogs will cast, but I feel like I have a better handle on them if I'm just roading them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're trained to do. And again, I think you really have better control of those dogs when you're roading them. Once you cast dogs, it seems like you've got one going north, you've got another one going east, you got another one going a different direction, and then they get so much distance between them. If one opens, the other ones may not hear it; they can't cover them.
Yeah.
And that's so important when you're hunting, big game. But it's even important in my country right now when it's as dry as it is.
Mm-hmm.
If I get dogs scattered, my chances of catching that coon on the ground is not good. But if I get all my dogs together working as a team, then my chances of catching that critter are vastly improved.
Yeah.
And and again, if you're going out right after dark and the coons are up moving, they'll hit hot tracks. You may, you can have dogs scattered and everybody's get treed and have dogs in different directions and all that. That'll work. But the reason I like to hunt the mornings is, like I say, to find out what kind of dogs I've got and to slow them down. I think a lot of dogs can catch a coon that's a really hot track.
Mm-hmm.
And but for them to work a track that hours old in dry conditions and still find the animal, I think makes them a more complete dog.
Yeah.
And I just like to watch dogs really work
mm-hmm.
A track. Of course, it's fun to listen to them, jump and run, and and I really like, I like to see them catch on the ground occasionally. Some of these coons here will try to outrun the dogs, and you'll catch a few on the ground. Same way with cats and bobcats, and then we'll put some of these coons in a hole. But I always tell guys, most of the guys back east, if they're coon hunting, they want a dog that's looking to get treed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a dog that's looking to get treed.
Right.
I want a dog that's trying to catch. I want a dog that's trying to catch on the ground.
Yeah, you see a lot of advertisements like that. Somebody says he's looking to get treed. I remember the older advertisements seemed like it was more about running to catch.
Yeah.
If they can run to catch, in my opinion, if a dog can run to catch, if he runs every track like he's trying to catch it, and that coon does happen to get in a tree, he's going to tree it.
Yeah. He's going to tree it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The problem is, And this is why we do the podcast. This is why we have Gary Roberson on here to talk about the way you hunt in Texas versus, how I would hunt here in Indiana. We'll tell you that if we're turning a dog loose and we're listening to that dog run a track and we're standing there getting cold listening to him, we need to find a different dog because we've got plenty of coon, and it just doesn't take that much nose and tracking ability to be able to tree a coon. We stay pretty warm and pretty light clothes in pretty cold weather because those dogs are getting treed with but they gotta have coons. That's the deal breaker for me. I'm not out there to look at in the tops of trees. I'm out there to look at coons, and I want a dog that can run that track like he's trying to catch it, locate it, and end it pretty quick. So
there you go.
That's a difference between. Go ahead.
And another thing I think we need to stress is if you're in East Texas, it's very similar to, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, big timber country. And that's a different world than where we are. We're in country where it's short trees, except along the river. Mm-hmm. And I don't hunt the rivers because I don't like that style of hunting. That's where the majority of the coons are. But you're just going to slam trees, and I like to hear a dog run, and I like to see a dog work. So I hunt the hills. And so where I am is not at all. A lot of guys say, "Oh, I've hunted down in Texas." Well, most of those guys are hunting East Texas. Mm-hmm. That's where the majority of the coon hunters are. And so it's just a different world where we are. And I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's way different.
Well, I think it goes back to the fact, Gary, that there's a certain way that you've found to be effective coon hunting where you like to hunt, and you've worked on trying to get dogs that suit you for that, and dogs that you can still take to some place like the Navajo, be able to cover a lot of miles and do it in a way. I've hunted with you both places and seen. I haven't coon hunted with you, but we cat hunted with Shorty's dogs, and you say your dogs operate the same way, and I see why you're doing what you're doing. Makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. It does. And a lot of it, let's face it, may go back to my pedigree. I just wrote an article for Cruel Cries. Steve got in touch with me and said he was needing some help, so I sent him a little article.
Yeah.
But my great-grandfather started the South Texas Wolf Hunters Association. And, of course, they weren't hunting wolves. They were hunting coyotes, and they were running them with running dogs, running walkers, foxhounds, Julies, Trigs. That's what they used. And that was back in the 1920s. And anyway, so that's in my bloodline is those running dogs. Right. And, of course, that's primarily what we're using on bobcat in South Texas nowadays are running dogs. Mm-hmm. As you hunted with Shorty enough to know that, they don't trail a whole lot. And when they get after a cat, they get it jumped. You've got dogs that are, they're packing up, but then if they make a loose, you can watch them on the Garmin. Those dogs are scattering. There's, somebody's going to wing out there and pick it up.
Yeah.
And the more dogs you have on the ground, the greater your chances of one of them running over that cat, wherever, finding him, picking up that loose, and getting the race going again. So most of those guys, they've got 15 to 20 dogs on the ground when they're hunting.
That cat better find some place to climb.
That's exactly right. It's not like, the coon hunting deal where you are, you've got one or two dogs out.
Right.
And I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't want to handle 15 dogs by myself. That's too much work. And that's too many to feed.
Yeah, but that's my deal.
I like to hunt 4 or 5, for what I do. And like I say, it seems that makes a good team. You'll have dogs that are, have their strong points, and others that they're weaker in some areas. But that tends to sort out, and it makes for an interesting. I guess everybody contributes something. You have this pearl dog I've got. the light-colored female. I know you
Mm-hmm.
remember because
Yep.
she looks like a bird dog, but that is the coldest nosed dog I have ever seen. I've had her start a line track, not in the snow, in damp, kind of sandy country, and I knew the track was 6 days old. And I don't know many dogs that can do that. She'll wear you out. She'll start so many tracks that she can't finish. But to me, everybody needs that. You need that first bark. If you're hunting cats, especially, I don't care if it's cats or bobcats or lions, because that gets all the other dogs looking.
Right.
And then you can decide if it's too old to mess with.
Mm-hmm.
You can always shut it down.
So let me ask you this:
like
how did you know it was 6 days old?
I had found the track the first time I went through there. She had started the track, and the snow had been on the ground 3 days before, but this track was made right as the snow was melting. You could
Mm-hmm.
tell. So I felt like it was 3 days old when she started. But once she started it, I had two other dogs that opened the trail with her, and they trailed to a rocky draw, and they couldn't trail it in the rock. But the sand, they could still smell it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 3 days later, I came back through on the same road, and she went down and started that same track. And I said, when she opened, I said, oh, good, that line's come back through here again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went down there. No, she had started the same track she had 3 days before.
Yeah.
And she trailed it again. This time she trailed it by herself to that rocky draw.
Hmm.
But the other dogs were trying to smell it, and they could smell a little. But
Yeah.
she's crazy cold. I had a bloodhound years ago, and that bloodhound couldn't smell what this dog can smell, I don't think. She's kind of a crazy, amazing dog.
Yeah. Well, hey, you guys have been
She's too cold nosed. She's too cold nosed, really.
Yeah, she could. How do you gauge that, Gary? I mean, you say too cold nosed, but why would you say that?
Because she's going to waste a lot of your time.
Okay.
You know, if coon hunting, she'll start a track that, she started one yesterday morning, and I know it had to have been made early in the night, no telling what. Finally, some other dogs opened with her, and they moved it a little bit, but, it just played out. So we waste 15, 20 minutes of her trying to mess with that old track. So what I'll generally do is just, as you know, hit the horn.
Yep.
And
Yep.
or holler at her, and she's coming. She'll come off.
Yeah.
And then we went right up the road, another quarter of a mile. She struck again, and it was an old track, but we could work it, and we treat it. So
I'm waiting for turkey season to end here. It ends in a few days, so I can get out and start hunting in the mornings again. Get out there and get after it. Where I hunt, smaller blocks of land than what you have in Texas. It's pretty typical of the upper Midwest. So you can burn up 50, 60 acres pretty quick with a hound here, as you know. And so
oh yeah,
when turkey
that
season's in.
That blue dog you've got is going to burn 50, 60 acres up pretty quick because he's got a big motor.
Yeah, that's right.
He's going to go through 50, 60 acres in 10 minutes. You're going to be looking for another spot to dump in.
And I can get away with it, I can get away with it when I'm coon hunting because I've got plenty of places to hunt, and I've talked to landowners. But during turkey season, my neighbors all turkey hunt and stuff, so I'm just not going to be out there in the mornings. I really prefer to hunt in the morning. You're to blame for that, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know. I mean, we hunted a little bit. We'd get up in the mornings, but after talking to you and getting to know you, I thought, he's on to something there. And I actually like getting up in the mornings and getting after it early in the morning rather than at night.
I do. It, guy needs to get up and move out anyway. And I like in the daylight, this country is not as dense as that country Shorties. I can see, it's not, you can see 50, 60 yards out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can generally watch those dogs work. Garmin's are great. You can see what's going on.
So it's kind of
pretty
like
well.
It's kind of like the Navajo.
It's kind of like the Navajo.
Okay.
Most of this country is.
Yeah.
A little more underbrush, of course, but being able to watch those dogs and will let you know who's really working sometime. So I just like, there's nothing like eye contact. Yeah. Being able to follow them if you want to and really see what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm going to shift gears on us a little bit. Tell me about the hogs you guys been catching. You've been catching a few hogs down there.
Yeah, we did. Of course, I don't hunt those with my hounds. There's a young boy here that same age as Clint, my oldest one, and they grew up best buddies. And of course, he coon hunted with me, and he had his own dogs, and so I started him coon hunting, and then he got into this hog deal. He went to trashing on me, but he and then another buddy that I've known, a young man since he was in high school from over around Lampasas, Texas, and he drives over. It's a couple hours over here, but he likes to hunt this country because it's bigger range country, and we can kind of go wherever we want, because no one wants these hogs.
Right.
When I moved here in 1985, there was not a wild hog feral hog in this county. And then we went out last Friday morning, or Thursday morning, I guess it was. And we caught probably 15 before 10 o'clock. And we turned them loose probably close to about 7:30. And we caught probably 15 hogs by 10. And the last one we caught Thursday was a really nice big hog.
Uh-huh.
And he was a very unusual. He had double cutters on his left side. I had never seen that before.
What happened to his right side? Did he break them off?
Right side was nope. He typically had just one big cutter on that side.
Huh.
But he had I don't you may have seen the photo on Facebook, but he had big cutters, double cutters on his left side.
I did see him.
And that we had a young lady with us that as a 5th grade teacher here. She had never hog hunted in her life. Her dad's a veterinarian in Portland, Oregon. Of course, he was raised here as well. And she's from a ranching family. So we'd hunted the Monday before, and we caught a really big hog, probably the oldest hog I've ever caught. And I know he was the tallest. He was stood up like nearly waist high on me. And but he was thin. He was not as heavy as you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Really long bodied, and he had huge teeth, just regular cutters on him. And she saw the photo of that I'd posted on Facebook, and she said, "Please come to our ranch and hunt. We're overrun with hogs." Well, I was looking for a story, and I hate to do stories where it's just Joe and I are hunting.
Right.
Anybody, a lot of TV shows do that, but I think the reason carnivores remain so popular is we tell stories with every episode.
Mm-hmm.
And Deb, my wife, said, "Well, when we did the first hunt, she said, well, you caught a big hog and all that, but what's your story?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'll think of something." Well, that night is when she responded to me on Facebook, and I said, "Here's my story right here. Here's Kim." I said, "If I'm going to call her and see if she wants to go with us Thursday and hunt, and if she does, we're good. Here's a gal that has hunted, has never hog hunted, and knows the need for some type of predator control and hog control, and that's and then she's a school teacher." I said, "This is great." So we took her there. There's a great story there, and what was really cool is, with first hogs, we bay up. I mean, we're not in the woods 10 minutes, and the dogs wind off the UTV, and of course we stop and they jump off. They go in a couple hundred yards and they bay up, and it's a bunch of sows and pigs. But they caught a pretty decent sized sow, and Rex, the young man from Lampasas, he said, "Well, do you want to kill this one?" And she said, "Yes, I'll do it." So the very first hog we bait up, it's chaos. It's I call it organized chaos. You got dogs barking and catch dogs have caught, and they got one catch dog in each ear, and dogs are jumping around, pigs squealing, dogs are barking, and it didn't intimidate her. She waded right in and killed that first hog. And the reason we don't shoot them with the gun is, it's really obvious. There's too many dogs milling around for someone to pull out a gun and go to shoot.
Right.
Something's going to get shot that you didn't mean to get shot. So
exactly.
Pulling out a knife and just stabbing that hog is the quickest way to kill him, and without risking injury to any of those dogs or anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
she
so
just waded right in and took care of business.
She waded right in. She said, I used to work with my dad at the vet clinic. This ain't nothing.
Yeah. So you catching them?
She killed probably a dozen hogs that day.
Wow. So you catching them and tying them up and then killing them?
Well, we don't tie them.
Okay.
We don't tie these. We're trying to just eliminate as many as we can. So the bay dogs, they'll bay the hogs up. Usually the hogs run, and once they get them stopped, the bay dogs get them stopped. Then we take in 2 pits, and those are the catch dogs. They've got vests on,
mm-hmm.
and you lead them right up to the bay, and then turn both pits loose at the same time, and wham, they catch, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then of course once they catch, then the other dogs will kind of pile on.
Right.
But as soon as that hog is killed, or even you have to go in and catch that hog by the hind legs. You got the pits, got him immobilized on the front end. So you just go in there and catch that hog by the hind legs, and then somebody move in and stab the hog, and then just throw the hog on the side. Usually by the time you get him tipped over, that hog's dead. And then you want your bay dogs rolling back out immediately to catch, stop that herd again.
Right.
So you can go through them again. And then of course the pits, you kind of have to pull them off. Sometimes you have to use a brake stick to break them loose from their pitch. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because once they latch on, they're on.
Organized chaos.
Organized chaos. That's what I call it. But the hog hunting has gotten huge down here. In fact, it's I hate to say it, but it's bigger than coon hunting nowadays.
Yeah.
There's more guys doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were guys that coon hunted at one time. But, the reason they're doing it is hogs are so plentiful and they can get on so much country. And, it's more of an adrenaline rush. And in my opinion, you don't have to have your dogs. They don't have to have maybe the trailing abilities and the treeing abilities.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to want to bay. And a lot of these stock dogs, Catahoulas and blackmouth curs and that sort of thing, that are good cow dogs, those are the ones that typically make pretty good hog dogs.
Yeah.
But then you shouldn't have them. You got to decide if you want to make them cow dogs or you're going to make them hog dogs, because where we're hunting, there's cattle, and you don't want them baying up somebody's cows.
Right.
But that's what they're doing essentially. They're just stock dogs, and that's the way they handle these hogs. When the hogs break and run, they try to get around them and gather them up, and generally they'll put them in a little thicket. And the other morning we waded in there, and I bet there were 30 hogs in a 10-foot radius there.
Yeah.
They were just piled in there. It was just amazing how many there were.
Yep. Yeah, it can be a lot of fun, and I mean, I love hog hunting, but I pretty much like hunting anything with a dog or a hound. If there's a hound or a dog involved, I have a blast doing it. So.
One thing we did see when we waded into those 30, we turned the pits loose to catch, and they did catch a sow. Well, there were so many hogs there. The other sows were trying to knock those pits off the one sow they had caught. And the good thing is the sows, as you know, don't have teeth to speak of, not like the boars. So they were bouncing the pits around, but they had already locked on. And so Rex just wades in there and gets the other hogs, spooks them away from the catch. That's
crazy. I'm going to have to get down there next spring and see some of that.
You won't believe it. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you know, you always like to catch that big hog, and we've been fortunate to catch some really good ones. But you know, that's the one that you're always uneasy about moving in on. You know, because if there's one that's going to cut a dog, it's going to be those big boars because they've got such big teeth on them.
Right.
And we got a couple of them nicked up the last 2 mornings, but they were nothing bad.
Yeah.
And of course they have vests on, but you get a big old stout hog. I've seen them knock holes all the way through those Kevlar vests.
Yeah. Yep. They can do it. That's for sure.
They can do it. But that's one thing. You mentioned the plot dogs. Heck, there's some guys that are, using those plots on these hogs, and some of them do pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them. That's one thing. Of course, these hog guys, they don't want those dogs barking until they have the hogs bait up. In other words, they don't want a dog trailing in their given mouth because those hogs will move away from them.
Yeah.
So they want a dog that goes in there quiet, gets up on the hogs, then starts barking at him.
Mm-hmm.
So a dog that's silent on track and gritty like a pit, they make pretty good hog dogs.
Yeah, I'd like to have Mike Cawley come with me over there and just he prefers a dog open on track. In fact, the way I ended up with Cajun, which came from Mike, was because he didn't open on track. But I think it's just a different philosophy and different. It's like you like one style of dog, I like another style of dog, and it all works out.
Sure.
Sure. It's just what's the old saying? The only person the dog has to please is the man that's feeding it, or the woman in this case too.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And I like a hound that gives mouth on track, and I've got 2 females now that are really tight. Once when they're cold trailing, now once they get jumped, they're going to give plenty of mouth.
Yeah.
But they're a little tight, and the reason I like for them to give mouth is, especially this older female, she's pretty good about finding the track out, and she's on it, but she's not saying anything. Well, if she'd open, those other dogs hear and go to her.
Right.
So,
that's
why I like to give mouth.
Yeah, if she's cold trailing silent and she's smelling stuff, she could be 400 yards away from them before she ever opens, or half a mile, and then bang, your other dogs are out of it, or taking a long time to get to her.
Yeah, then they don't hear it.
Right.
Yes, exactly right.
So
that's why, and it's I know it's a different game, and I can sure see the hog hunters wanting those dogs to be quiet.
Yeah.
And especially in the days of garment,
mm-hmm.
you know where they are. They don't have to get mouth. In the old days, if they left out silent, you wouldn't have a clue where they were. And if they went a mile in there and went to baying, you might not have a clue where they were bayed.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. This winter I may have to make a hog hunting tour. Go down and catch up with my buddy Mike, and then cruise on west over there and see you guys, and maybe take in a bobcat day or two and make a trip out of it. Sounds like fun.
Well, come on. That's one thing about Texas. We've got, as you know, there's unlimited hunting opportunities here. Probably the most liberal game laws, without a doubt, in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So just come on. And the neat thing about this hog deal is the biologists tell me that if you don't remove 75% of the population annually, you're losing ground.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Because if conditions are good, they'll raise 2 litters.
Mm-hmm.
They may raise 6 to 8 pigs in a litter.
Right.
And then they're also, once that gilt or shoat is 6 to 7 months old, she can be breeding and start raising. So if you don't remove 75% of the population every year, you're losing ground. And we saw that on display just last week.
Mm-hmm.
We were hunting 3,000 acres, and we never got out of 1,000, I don't think. We hunted right in about 1,000 acres, and I don't know how many hogs we bait up in there, but I'd safely say over 100 on Friday. We killed probably 15.
So down around Cotulla, are there hogs like that down there too?
Yes, they don't. I don't think the populations are quite as high there because it's.
I can't remember. I don't think we saw any, but maybe we saw some sign.
There was not any in that place where we hunted because they have shot. They've shot them out.
Okay.
They do a lot of aerial gunning. It's and that's what they're starting to do here to control the populations is just aerial gun them. In fact, there's companies or outfitters that are they lease or own a helicopter, and then they charge these guys to come out and shoot, and they charge them like $1,000 for an hour, and they let them shoot hogs out of the helicopter. So it's a win-win deal. The rancher gets rid of the hogs, and the outfitter gets to make some money.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
But so I'm not into aerial gunning. I think the way to hunt most game is get on the ground and chase them with a dog. Right. Yeah. Well,
how many episodes you going to have with hounds in it for Carnivore TV for episode 10? I know you're working on it.
We'll probably have 4 episodes this year with hounds or hog hunting. Well, maybe 5.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people want me to do one on the coon hunting deal.
And
because I haven't done that in years, I'm kind of looking for a story there before I do that one, because that's something we can do pretty easy here. And then we'll do a couple with Calvin, bear and lion stuff, and then of course the hog stuff here as well.
Yeah. Are you?
And we'll do some with Shardy. I'm going to do one with Shardy as well.
Yeah.
I've got a young gal that's legally blind. She's a student at Texas A&M, and I'm taking, as soon as we can get out and do a little more traveling, I'm going to take her down to Shardy's, and we're going to do a little cat hunting with her because she can see well enough. I think, especially if we can get a cat silhouetted, that she can kill him. Yeah. So that's what she wants is a bobcat. So I told her that's what we do.
Yeah, sounds like a good story. For sure.
Oh, you got to have the stories. Like I say, there's just people get tired of Joe and I are hunting. Here we go.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
There needs to be a storyline, and that's what we try to do.
Well, Gary, you got any news on that new digital collar?
We've been using them and field testing them, and we really like what we're seeing. In fact, I was right before I talked to you, I was visiting with my engineer. We're supposed to get the latest prototype sent to me today that has all the changes I wanted made. And if those changes are to my satisfaction, then I guess we'll put it into production. So we hope to have it hopefully out in July or August.
Nice. And, how big a unit are we talking about? What are you expecting?
It's not big. Well, I'm looking at it right now. Of course, with the carrying case, it's going to stand up close to a foot tall and nearly a foot deep and about probably 8 inches across, something like that. Without the batteries in it, we just weighed it. What did it weigh, Steve? 3 pounds, I think, is all it weighed with the remote. 3 pounds. But this one, since it is processing so much more information, it takes more batteries.
Okay.
So we have a rechargeable battery in it, and then as a backup, I put 6 D batteries in it, but so I can go a couple of days without running out of power.
Yeah. And
with those batteries, it puts it up a little over 6 pounds. That's with the remote and everything.
Well, good deal. Good deal. That way, you're going to make so much money. You're going to make so much money off that digital collar that you'll get to pick up all the bills at Harrah's next year.
There you go. Well, we'll be glad to. what's great, we've got, people have been waiting for this product for some of them over 2 years, because we've been working on it 3 years.
Right.
And I'm so glad. I'll be so glad to see some money come back this way. To date, all the money has been going the other way for R&D.
I hear you, man.
It's time to bring some money back this way. So
I'm going to tell a funny story, and so the first night we went to Harris, you were real generous and you picked up the tab and everything, and I said, well, I'll get the bill tomorrow night. Well, the next night, Calvin comes with his wife and his kids, and I got to pick up that bill. And I think you had that. I think you had that planned. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I did.
Yeah.
Sure I did.
I got that bill. And I about had a heart attack. I was like, no, it was all good. It was all good. I look forward. I'll tell you what. When we went to the SHOT Show this year, first time I've ever been, but also I can say I've been to Vegas before, and I really didn't enjoy it that much the first time I went. And this time I went, I had an absolute blast between hanging out with Calvin, Red House, and you, and we just had a lot of fun. I talked my wife into going. She's coming next year, so
there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, and I told her.
Well, I keep saying I'm not going back because I've been. I don't know how many of those things I've been to, but every year it seems like here I am. I'm back out there, so I guess I'll say I'm not going, but I'll probably be back out there again this year.
I hope you are. I really do. I really do, because that was kind of a fun trip, and it was kind of, we'd been out in the mountains and hunting and doing all that stuff, but then we came back to, I guess, Vegas as civilization. Some would argue, but it was still a good time. I mean, and I'm not a metro guy that likes going to those big cities, but we had a good time. We did, and I don't know if you can call that civilization or not. I'm not sure what Vegas is. It's another world. It's its own world, isn't it?
It's its own world, but I don't gamble, so
right.
We go to the SHOT Show, and of course we know so many. We've been going so long. We know a lot of folks there, and
you knew everybody there.
Well, not everybody, but that's some of those people, the only time I see them is at the SHOT Show.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like a family reunion, and we've got guys that we just go and visit with, and and like catch up on their families and what's going on, and
sure.
what they're bringing new to the industry, and that's the neat thing about SHOT. It's hunting is really a small fraternity when it all melts down, and most everybody's a good guy that's in this industry.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about hunting, you're generally in a good mood. So most everybody's, has a smile on their face. And
right.
It's all good.
Yep. For sure. Well, Gary, we better wrap this one up. And if you haven't got anything else, you want to throw out there? Any stories you want to tell on me or anything? No, I'm good today. Like I say, I've been visiting with Steve, and I'm not sure when the article will appear in Full Cry. You probably know. It will be the June edition of Full Cry magazine. So what we've done there, and this is a shout out for Steve. Steve has taken this project on all on his own. Of course, Steve has a long history of magazines and being a writer and writing for publications. He was the editor of Coonhound Bloodlines and really created that magazine into what it was in its heyday. And now with Full Cry, we had an opportunity as Houndsman XP to have our own exclusive segment in Full Cry, and Steve has taken that on to it's really a pretty high-class segment there, and I would encourage all our listeners to find a subscription, buy a subscription to Full Cry, because I think Steve's putting together content there that's going to really appeal to houndsmen of every stripe. I mean, you really do get anything that you can think of. There's squirrel dog stuff. We're trying to up the amount of hound stuff that's back in there. Seth Hall's writing side hound articles about his long dogs or his greyhounds. I've talked to Shorty about writing some for the running dog crowd. So I'm looking. Steve's going to make his mark with that full cry segment, I believe.
Well, I think so. He's been successful with every endeavor he's taken on, and I'll be honest, I don't have a subscription to Full Cry, but I'm going to get one. And the reason I quit him is when it seemed like it was a little more maybe squirrel hunting and I wasn't into that. But,
right.
Now the June day, it kind of don't be disappointed. He did say he thought that my article would be the feature article for June, and had I known that, I would have put a little more time into it. But I did try to send him a couple of interesting photos, so I'm not sure what he's going to use. We'll just wait and see.
Well, we appreciate you doing that for sure, Gary. I know Steve was excited about it, and hopefully we can get some more articles from you, because you've been in the industry a long time. You've been in hounds for a long time. You got a lot of things to share with the Houndsman XP crowd and the hound world. That's for sure.
Well, and if we didn't have enough to do, in the process of writing a book, this one's going to be on calling. It's going to be a little on rattling whitetails, because I've done so much of that. A little on calling turkeys in the spring, and a whole lot on calling predators. And looks like it's going to be around 300 pages, probably 200 color photos, and I don't know. My wife can talk me into this one, and we'll see how it works. But that book should be out in July, and it's going to be titled Eyes Front.
Okay, nice. I like the title. The title sounds good. I know it'll be a high quality. I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't know if you were ready to put it out there yet that it was coming out.
Well, we do. I've done so much writing through the years. Basically, we're going to just compile a lot of the articles that I've written.
Good.
And and then she said, "Well, when are you going to do one on hound hunting?" I said, "I don't know. Well, let's see how this goes first."
Yeah. That'd be a good time. Well, Gary.
All right, my friend.
Hey,
always a pleasure.
You bet. It is a pleasure. And I always value the time I get to spend with you, either on the phone or in person, Gary. So stay in touch. And until we get together again, you follow your hounds, and I'll follow mine.